happening?
Hey, how we doing?
Not bad, not bad. Happy hump day or happy. It's kind of weird. I feel like Wednesdays, other than last week, Wednesday's kind of been our show other than Friday. So, it's cool to have it halfway through the week.
Yeah, like Wednesday and Friday. I think it's 2 good days to stream for sure.
Yeah, Monday's not my day. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, man, Mondays are always crazy for me. It'd be tough to get a stream off, but yeah, Friday afternoon and Wednesday afternoons they seem to work well. So yeah.
Yeah, well, shout out to our sponsors, Sales-CRM. One of the best CRM platforms out there, freight specific. I think the only freight specific CRM that I'm aware of. And Josh is just an all around great guy too. So if you're looking for a CRM, sales is key right now. So if you're looking for a CRM, highly recommend going to Josh. Tell him Two Dawgs sent you.
Yep, and then additional shout outs to Trio. They do all of our back end stuff. Black Box Logistics, my company, and then HD Shipping, who Matt's an agent recruiter for.
Yeah, so if you're looking for a W-2 job in Alabama, give Will a shout. If you're looking to be an agent all over the country, give me a shout. And we got a new sponsorship that's going to be coming. I don't know. We'll probably announce that by the end of the week, right? When we have all that.
Yeah, it should either be tomorrow or Friday at the latest.
Yeah, so should be good. Well, I'm pumped for today, man. I've known Ryan for a long time. He actually does some work for our company. He's involved, he'll tell us his background, but he's involved with some, massive 3PLs. His dad on the forwarding side, Bill, has been at it for, decades and tons of experience, tons of knowledge. And it should be really fun.
Yeah, I always see their content on LinkedIn, so I'm definitely looking forward to it as well. Let's go ahead and add them to the stage and let them introduce themselves, give us a little background. Bill, Ryan, how are we doing?
Will, Matt, how are you guys? Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. How's it going, Bill?
Fantastic. Had a nice round of golf with Ryan this morning. Can I admit that? Can I own that? Yeah. Had a nice round of golf with Ryan this morning, 90 degrees. And
Bill sank
better than father-son golf.
Yeah, 45-foot birdie putt, longest hole in the course, so he's happy.
Oh wow, who won?
I think I might have won, but Bill had the birdie. So
yeah, you remember the 45-foot putt, you might forget who won the round. So
and on top of that, he'll remember the client that brought us out to his club and handed Bill a check when we showed up. So
there you go.
Golf paid for it, and a check when you show up is a great way to start a Wednesday.
Yeah,
better.
Worst way to spend a Wednesday. Yeah, good for you guys.
You guys want to start
building potatoes out there?
Yeah, no, 100%. You guys want to start kind of give us a brief, background for people who don't know what Logitalent is or your guys' background. I don't know who wants to go first, but just kind of introduce yourself to everybody.
Age before beauty. So Bill.
Age before beauty. Okay. Wow. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. But this is my 54th year in freight forwarding and logistics. Started Logitalent in 2015. That's my second logistics recruiting firm. Actually started a company called Freight Match Services in 1994. Sold that in 2012. Went back into the forwarding business for a minute. Got back out. Started Logitalent. Ryan joined, and I'm going to let Ryan take over from there because things really took off when Ryan joined. Because prior to that, we were exclusively doing placements for international freight forwarders. Ryan had the domestic brokerage background, grew up, in the industry, literally sitting next to the godfather of one of the two godfathers of brokerage, which was Paul Lowe. So Ryan, take it from there, buddy.
Yeah. So if anyone saw my post today, it was just a pic of me and my old man at a wedding, which was an ex-command guy, now Echo, but. So the story really goes back to 2005 when I left college, went to go work for Command. Had two options to go sell for C.H. Robinson or Command. Robinson probably had 400 or 500 sellers already in the U.S. at that point. Command had about 14. So I went that route. Sold freight on the truckload side, and then sold international freight forwarding. And throughout the whole time, my dad kept saying, "Get in this recruiting game." And I was like, "No, I'm good. I'm selling freight." At that point, I was living in Hermosa Beach. I was like, I don't want to be a recruiter. I had a good life outside sales. And come full circle after asking me, 50, 100 times, and then watching how his business was growing, I was like, let me start working on some sales roles. So I started working on sales roles in the freight forwarding world and found out that I had a knack for it. Love talking to people, love hearing about careers, love taking people to the next spot in their career and seeing what they can bring to a client. So I had this idea about, okay, we're doing great in the freight forwarding space, a couple of recruiters in the brokerage space, but I think there's a lot of room, especially with the growth in the brokerage space 7 years ago. I'm like, there's a lot of room. So I reached out to some people, and one of them was Paul Loeb, one of the godfathers of freight brokerage, and asked him, and he goes, Ryan, he goes, so many people in the industry. He goes, this is a no-brainer. So I started reaching out to some of my old command colleagues. At this point, they were either running companies or owning companies. And within the first 6 days, I think I had 3 contracts signed, albeit they were pretty fucking low fees, but the fees have gotten up to market levels. But I was really just asking buddies who were in hiring positions or ownership, like, hey, can I help you staff? And 7.5 years ago, it wasn't much different than today, when the first thing they ask you to find is a seller with a book of business, right?
Yeah.
Which is much easier said than done, but hey, you can help us fill some roles. Bring us sellers with a book of business. Fast forward to where we are now, I think Logi, we have 22 recruiters. When the market was ripping, we had 36 recruiters. But at 22, we've got a really strong team, tons of experience on both the freight forwarding side and the domestic brokerage side. And we found that taking that group and then a group of people that have recruiting experience or other transferable skills, we've built a really good team of recruiters that match, that know what, most importantly, the candidates and the clients want, right? Really good team, great personalities. And it kind of leads us to where we are today.
It's very cool.
I didn't know you had that many. Wow, 36 recruiters during COVID.
36 during COVID. Yeah. At one point I said, during COVID, I go, this is a great time to be in year 2 of a new brokerage recruiting company, because this is about to go nowhere. No one's going back to the office. Fast forward, 3 or 4 months into COVID, when things kind of got back to normal, everyone's like, we're hiring like crazy. We're allowed to be back in the office. Every brokerage is making money hand over fist, and every freight forwarding company, they're like, we can't keep our teams staffed enough and keep up with the demand. And I'm sure you guys, everyone saw the same thing, right?
Yeah, of course. So as far as you talk about the fees and the commission, so is that how it works? It's just a lump sum, or do you ever set it up, like a revenue split or something of that nature? Or is it just kind of a finder's fee for the compensation?
So typically, and historically, almost everything we've done has always been, lump sum percentage of the first year's salary compensation, not excluding bonuses and whatnot. We started getting to some of the agent side where we'll do a flat fee, and then there will be a revenue split based on the GP for a set amount of time.
Okay. And so are you finding companies?
And that's a newer model we're working.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. You go ahead.
Go ahead, Will.
Well, I was going to ask you, so you find the company and then you search for the talent, or do you ever do the inverse where you find somebody looking to make a change and then go search for companies to place them? Or do you,
we do a combination of both. We call that if we have the talent and we're bringing that talent to people that might be interested that we don't have a contract with, Bill's always called it an opportunistic placement. I'll let him talk a bit about that. But if you've got a great candidate, that might not fit an open recommendation or an open job rec, it's like, let's go bring that talent and put him in front of companies that may have use for him or her. And Bill can touch further on that as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I learned very, very early on in my career in the industry is that freight forwarders are very much the same. And we'll talk about freight forwarders for the minute, but it really applies to brokers as well. But if you look at the freight forwarders, ostensibly they're all the same. They use the same airlines, the same steamship lines, the same rails, same truckers, sometimes the same warehouses. If they didn't create their own technology, then they're probably using an off-the-shelf platform like CargoWise. And so the only real difference between one freight forwarder and another is people. And the company with the best people wins. It's as simple as that. So one of the things when we talk about, working on an opportunistic basis, so, a certain amount of our business is driven by demand. So our client companies call us up and they tell us what they need, and we work hard to fill those gaps. But the other element is that our client companies know that we've been very, very successful in their business as freight forwarders or as truck brokers. And so we have the privilege of working with our client companies at a very, very senior level, we can go to them and say, hey, we have this candidate. We think this candidate could be amazing for you in this particular role. You may not have that role, but you might want to think about creating that role around this individual. And that's happened a lot for us. So we call that an opportunistic placement versus the demand placement, where the client's coming to us saying we have this particular need. We're going to the client company and saying, hey, we have this particular candidate. We think he or she would fit really, really well in your organization. Here's why. Here's the role, and here's the ROI. And client companies respond really, really well to that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Shout out to Truck Stop. Looks like they're tuned in from X. Yeah, so or go ahead.
I was going to add to that. A lot of the times, where that opportunistic placement really proves the value is if it's a brokerage or a freight forwarder that doesn't, they're not utilizing all modes of transportation, and you've got somebody on the commercial side who has strong expertise in a mode. It could be air freight on the international side, it could be import export, could be LTL, reefer, flatbed. So if you're bringing someone to that to a brokerage or a freight forwarder, hey, somebody can grow out a whole team or department for you. Yeah. Or if you want to even get into vertical specific, somebody who's in oil and gas or solar or auto, machinery, OEM, so many different verticals that, really good leaders and sellers may have built their whole careers around and have built it up at one place. And you might bring them to a company that's open to expand. You're like, hey, I've got a great oil and gas guy that can go get you oil and gas business and grow that from the ground up for you.
Yeah.
Which makes it really intriguing for companies that want to have that growth.
Yeah,
are you starting to see more carrier sales roles come back, or more operation roles? I know it's a hot topic, or are we still kind of a ways away from that, from what you guys are seeing, from your companies?
No, great question, Matt. And probably the second week of April, we got hit by multiple clients looking for account managers, CAMs, carrier sales, mid-level management, operations, CSRs, basically a lot of roles that had been non-existent for 12 to 18 months, for most, right? And I know a lot of other companies aren't adding those roles, but a lot of companies that are well positioned are adding that back to keep up with their current demand or their increasing demand. I would say it's a lot more of the larger players that are seeing this, right? They've already got logos onboarded, and they're like, hey, these accounts are coming back to levels of 2 or 3 years ago, or new logos they've added in the past 12 months are finally ramping up, right? So they need to staff up accordingly. So we have seen the last 2 months a massive uptick.
So how do you go about finding your people besides it sounds like you guys are very established. So I'd imagine that you have a lot of individuals coming to you for maybe some opportunistic placements.
Yeah.
If somebody comes for you for a more lower, I don't want to say lower, but like a carrier sales role or kind of the positions Matt was inquiring about, how do you go about sourcing those people?
Don't tell him, Ryan. We don't give away the secret sauce.
If I can put it into a nutshell, our recruiters, or whether it's somebody who's been in the industry as long as Bill or someone who's been doing it for 3 years, everyone has gotten really good at networking. I will tell you, the same way I know both of you guys, LinkedIn has been a tremendous resource for networking for us in the business. And then the best way is referrals, right? If you do a solid for somebody, you place a guy or girl at a place, they're really happy with you. They love the service. They love what you've done to change their career. They're going to give you referrals eventually, right? You may have to ask for them, just like business, just like selling freight, right? A lot of your best business comes from your referral sources. So you place somebody in a great job, you change their career, which hopefully will change their life and their family's lives, whatever. They're like, hey, go talk to Logitalent. They put me in a great role 3 years ago, and I'm thriving now.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it makes sense. So do you run into issues with contracts often? So maybe you have an individual that you want to move from one company to another. They're on board. Everything's great. You're getting to the finish line. Then, hey, they've got these contracts. You run into that frequently, or does that come up, or do you vet that early on, or do you have a stance on it at all?
Oh, I guess if we're talking contracts, if we're getting into non-competes, non-solicits, it's something that everybody, anyone on this side or your side, it seems like everyone seems to hate it. There's some big companies out there that seem to still love that they have them signed, and everything is situational. Not everyone's situation plays out the same. I've seen a lot of things work out really well. We've seen things that might not even be deals we've been involved in. Everyone's heard the horror stories or different things that have happened to people. Everyone knows someone in their network that's had some type of ramifications of some contract they probably signed when they were 23 years old, and at 32 it came to bite them in the ass, right?
Yeah.
You get out of college, you sign this non-compete, you're getting your first job ever. You don't know what you signed, but you knew you're getting paid $45,000 a year. You had health insurance, you had vacation, you actually had a job to go tell your parents,
Yeah.
hey, I'm doing something now. But everything is situational, and every company approaches everything differently. But like Bill said, freight forwarders, they all do the same thing. I'm a firm believer that all freight brokerages really do the same thing. You move freight from point A to point B. You might say you've got all this technology, you've got proprietary this, but like freight's been moving from point A to point B for thousands and thousands of years, right? And again, it comes down to the people. But every situation is just so different, right? Because every company that's growing, that's not just hiring rookies, is hired away from other companies. But they might be enforcing a non-solicit, non-compete, but they'll go poach people for themselves.
Yeah.
How do you find people to, because you guys are getting larger. I mean, I think you said you had 30 some recruiters during COVID, 22 now. I know you work with a couple top 20, brokerages out there. How do you find people to, as you kind of gotten so big, is it harder to find people to source from? Because obviously I would just guess you don't want to source from your, current clients,
No, absolutely. No. Yeah.
Yeah. So is it getting harder kind of as you're growing to find places to find candidates, or do you, or kind of maybe talk a little bit about that?
Bill,
there are 18,000 truck brokers out there, I believe, and there are at least 1,000 freight forwarders. So one of the game changers when we came on the scene back in 1994 was we came on the scene, and we everything about us was all about integrity. So if we work with you, we won't recruit from you. Not only that, if your employees reach out to us, we will respectfully tell them that's a conflict of interest. Unfortunately, we can't represent you. So you always want to keep the talent pool as deep as you can. Our customer base is essentially about less than 20 companies, and we have chosen those companies to work with. We've literally partnered with those companies, so we are their talent partners, and we've grown with them. I mean, that's been the beauty of the companies we chose to work with, is that we've grown because of them and through them. But the talent pool is immensely deep. As I said, if we're working with 20 companies out of 19,000, that leaves us plenty of companies to go after.
That's a good point. Are there any ones that you guys particularly, I think you made a post a while back about, and I don't think you named the company, but there was somebody you were reaching out to for recruitment services, and I forget what exactly they said, but you said, there's always companies to, that we need for candidates, and that was a good company. I mean, are there any ones that you look at, like, do you guys kind of target the ones that are, maybe don't have the best pay structures or have more, problems, or do you guys kind of just go, as you said, there's 20,000, so there's a lot to choose from? Or are there specific ones that you guys, without saying names, that you guys kind of, target?
It's a great question, Matt. And let me just answer that, and then Ryan can chip in. Not only are we looking at the company, we're looking at the managers, right? Nobody ever works for a company. They work for managers. Every one of us, we've never worked for a company in our lives. We work for managers. We work for bosses. And so we're all about, ensuring that the client companies we're working with have great management, great leadership, great bosses. And that's who we're really pairing the candidates up with. So, that's the way we approach it. Ryan, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, and then the other things that we'll do, obviously you'll hear news, good, bad, indifferent about certain companies. You'll see different things going on in the marketplace. You'll know where it travels fast when, a company might not be doing well, or especially when for customer sales reps, right? When commission's been restructured, people bitch and complain about that all the time, and that travels like wildfire, right? So if a company's out there and they have very good reps, have a good name for themselves in the industry, but they've got disgruntled reps now because they've changed their commission program. I mean, that's the time you go after a company like that, right? You hear about.
Sorry, go ahead.
We should probably do a public service announcement to the one giveaway we have for today for companies that don't work with us is, if you change your your commission program and make it worse for your salespeople, you will lose your salespeople, and you may well lose them because we're the guys going after them. Don't check if your commission program's working. Don't change it. And as somebody said to us the other day when we were asking them to explain their commission program, they said, if you can't write down the commission program on a bar napkin, then the commission program you have is way too complicated. Companies need to keep that commission program really, really simple and pay the performers.
Yeah, love that. Bill, you'd referenced integrity. You had a LinkedIn post I really liked where you said integrity's kind of like your virginity. Once you lose it, you can't get it back. So that was quite clever. It was a good one.
I think I got that from my brother-in-law. So I'll have to give my brother-in-law Eddie Ray some credit for that one. I do believe I might have stolen that from him.
It was a good one to steal.
Are you guys seeing kind of going a little bit of a different direction? Where are you guys kind of seeing? I love the quote too, by the way. What are you guys kind of seeing in the cradle to grave versus the split model? I mean, your Chicago model. You have a lot of brokerages that are split model, just being like, I know you guys, I'm guessing, are pretty heavy in the Chicago market, or are you guys more on the split model or 50-50, or are you guys seeing movement one way or the other, or pretty much kind of the same as it's always been, some brokerages on both?
Yeah, I mean, for us historically, a lot of the clients we work with have been the Chicago model, the split model. That's how I learned it. That's how a lot of my recruiters have learned it. We do find that when you look at some of these companies that that are well known for doing a good cradle to grave model, when you bring a great seller opportunity to a cradle to grave rep who likes the business, but they're bogged down, they're working 12, 14 hours a day. If you show them the path to success and show them like you can just go out and do what you love to do, if that's selling instead of getting the operations side, there's a high level of demand for them on the other side, right? To come to the split model. It's like, hey, now your only task is to go hunt, bring on business, service the account until it gets passed off to the account management team, or you have your operations reps. But they're well-rounded reps, and a lot of our clients love that, because even if you've got great operations behind you, like a great sales rep's going to do whatever it takes for that one shipment, whatever for those clients. And if you know how to move a load yourself, you'll be able to bail yourself out instead of having to just wait or tell the customer, hey, couldn't do it, my team couldn't come through. Like, you can roll up your sleeves and figure out how to move that one load a month or one load every week. That becomes virtually impossible, but you take care of it. Your client's going to recognize the service you put in there. So the cradle to grave model, the people who've learned it and done really well, when you bring them to the other side, it's almost like you've freed up a bunch of their time, their abilities to go out and just sell, taking a bunch of work off their plate. So we see that to be very successful for us.
And Matt, I think you'd asked, or maybe you did or didn't. You ask most of our placements in Chicago?
Yeah, are you guys pretty heavy in Chicago? I mean, not just because Chicago's so big and obviously, Ryan has roots there. Or do you guys see that it's kind of more spread out where a lot of your roles? Or are you more Chicago heavy, just kind of, based on your guys' roots?
Truly national. We recently partnered up with a company that is it might be the most secretive billion plus dollar player out there. And, we recently partnered with them, and they instantly had us working in Chicago, in Atlanta, in Dallas, in New Jersey, in California,
Charleston,
literally,
Virginia,
literally across the country. And there's another account that we recently gained, and again, their opportunities are across the country. So, and our team are strategically spread out across the country. So we've got we've got people in California, San Diego, LA, Dallas, obviously Chicago, Atlanta, Miami, New Jersey. I probably missed one, but So we're strategically spread out, and the other thing is that we really encourage our recruiters to have a relationship with the local office. So I get amused, and I had a couple of guys from Bristol come after me during the week because I said, hey, people need to be transparent. Bristol, England, not Connecticut. Bristol, England.
Yeah, not Connecticut.
I said candidates need to be everybody on LinkedIn. You need to be transparent. If you work in LA, then your profile should say that you're in LA, not India. And if you are a recruiter and you say that you're, Atlanta, then don't be in Bristol, England. And so, a couple of recruiters in Bristol, England, came back and said, "Oh, it works and this and that and the other." I said, well, I don't care. We have a guy, one of our top performers. He's in Birmingham, England. Absolute rock star recruiter.
And his profile
says Sorry?
And his profile says he's in Birmingham, England. It doesn't say, hey, United States, LA, Miami, Chicago. So it says exactly where he is, right?
Yeah. Hybrid USA. So where our candidates benefit from that is we visit, Ryan and I and a few others, and we're all jumping on planes on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're going to be out visiting with client companies, in other cities. So we stay close to our client companies. We meet with them frequently. We know their culture because we immerse ourselves in their culture. You can't know a company's culture when you are 3,000 or 4,000 miles away. It just can't happen. So one of the advantages with Logitalent is that we are based in the US, with the exception of one individual. We're all based in the US, and we work very, very closely with our client companies by being in their offices, meeting with them on a regular basis, and probably knowing as much about them as they know about themselves. We certainly know about their culture, their environment. We know all those things, and we know their facilities, and we know where their facilities are. We don't need to get out an atlas to figure out how far it is from where the candidate lives to where the opportunity exists.
Yeah, that seems like it would be so important. I don't have any experience with recruiting or using recruiters, but when you talk about placing an individual, it seems like immersing yourself in the company and knowing what would and wouldn't be a good fit surely goes such a long way, especially with, it seems like you guys are more long-term thinking with your clients, the partnerships, right? So if you're just throwing bodies in there, it's not sustainable. That seems very attractive.
Yeah. And you want to meet, and you might have, sorry to interrupt, Ryan, but you want to meet with the candidates as well, right? It's not really, you can't meet with every single candidate, but you meet with as many candidates as is practically possible. So you really get to know them. So when we present a candidate, our rules always been really, really simple. If we would work for the company, we'll place people there. And if we would hire the candidate, we'll do everything we can to find that candidate another opportunity. Sorry, Ryan.
Is it pretty competitive right now for candidates on the W-2 side and for businesses? I mean, are you seeing that you're sharing a lot of clients with other agencies, and are you seeing like a lot of candidates that are talking to multiple different recruiters, or how's the competitive? And we hear about competition on the brokerage side, but how competitive right now is it on your side of things?
There's obviously a lot. There's some very good recruiting companies that do what we do, but I think the difference, that I think we bring to the table. We had a client that dumped probably 45 open roles on us with a set amount of time. They weren't exclusive, but they might as well have been. And within 5-week period, I think we had 34 of those roles covered, right? So if you give us those roles, what we can do differently is, hey, like, give us these roles and we'll get them done, right? I do know some crossover that we have with other recruiting firms, but there's enough good talent out there that we can all do our thing. But the more wins you stack up for your clients, the more opportunities they'll give you, the more exclusives they'll get on a leadership role, the more they'll rely on the partnership that they know Logitalent's going to fill those roles, right? Do they have other options? Yes. And may the other option work out sometimes? Sure, it may work out sometimes. But much like a shipper, right? When you've got a few brokers that work out really well for you, you're not going to keep spreading out your freight to make it thinner, right? You're going to say, hey, you might have 10 brokers, and you have 4 that work really, really fucking good for you. You're going to roll it up eventually and give it to those 4. Maybe keep a couple as backups, right?
Yeah,
I'm glad you brought up speed.
About it. Sounds very similar to that shipper broker relationship, which I'm sure is similar. A lot of industries are just business transactions in general, right? Matt, didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, I apologize. It might be my computer. I think I might be on maybe a little bit of a delay. But I wanted to say, speed-wise, you brought up speed. I mean, you filled 5 roles in 5 or
35.
20 some
35 roles, yeah.
Yeah, 35 roles in 5 weeks. I mean, how important is that for the companies? Because obviously, some of these roles, these companies want sellers in seats now, and how important has that been to kind of building kind of your relationships with some of these customers? Is the ability to do it fast?
Well, the beauty of this was not one was a seller or even a seller with a book of business, right? These were all roles that were needed to support existing business. There were account managers, CAMs, carrier reps, carrier sales managers, drayage reps, drayage managers, ops reps. And this was all to support business that was already growing, right? It wasn't like, hey, go find me sellers. And they had deadlines they had to hit to have these seats filled because the business was there ready to be turned on, or it was already getting turned on and they needed more support to keep the business running well. So for a project like that, speed to market and getting the right people in the right seats fast is imperative, right? If not, they might have had to ask 2 or 3 other recruiting firms to help out with the project.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but it almost seems like those positions would be significantly easier to fill as opposed to somebody, hey, I want somebody with this huge book of business that they could transfer. Is that accurate, or do you find a harder time finding those hunters per se with the established book to transfer?
Hunters right now with an established book, I think it's much tougher than any client asks you about, right? And if somebody says they have a transferable book, if say they're doing $100K a month GP, good rep in the game for a while, they say 50K is transferable. I think really what comes over the first 3 to 6 months is less than 25%. Yeah. I'll talk to my clients and set the expectation. So many different factors, right? What type of company they're going from to who they're going to, type of business. Are those accounts, does anyone have any relationship, or somebody burned a bridge of that one of their clients? Type of business, rates they need, so many different factors where it's not really plug and play at all. And then in a market where there's so much capacity, the shipper might love Matt Dahl as his customer rep, right? But if Matt's leaving to a company that, Matt can tell Will, the company's great, they're great, Bill Paul's a great person, but there's no relationship. It's like you're trusting Matt. You want to trust Matt. He's done a great job, but your freight's moving fine. And if he leaves, you best believe in a really tough market, the company, that sales rep is leaving, is going to do a damn good job of trying to protect that business and just not let it walk, right?
Yeah.
If business is that's already moving through them, they might lose the rep, but they'd be so naive to think that hey, we just don't need to service this account anymore.
Is that why you target more cradle to grave reps for your split model? Because I could be off base here, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. But obviously, on the split model, the customer has a relationship with a carrier rep, an account rep, a customer rep. They're generally bigger enterprise accounts, whereas the cradle to grave is SMB, and that customer might only know them. So it might be a lot easier for that business to transfer over. Is that kind of, you were mentioning earlier that some of your split model reps, they love cradle to grave sellers. Is that part of the reason why is those books are more, at least on the agent side, I see those books are way more transferable than, just a straight seller?
Yeah, and your question leads me to a great observation about you doing on the agent side, right? Like if you're talking to somebody who's in a cradle to grave W-2 model and showing them the agent side, they're involved in every step of the process from the time that the freight is discussed, tendered, shipped, delivered, POD, right? Billed, in essence. So there's a lot more reason to believe that whatever rep is leaving, said company in a cradle to grave model will likely be able to bring the business. They know how it moves. They know what carriers to move. They know the rates. They have a great understanding of everything in the whole process, right? Versus just being a pure hunter who does a great job and can go get in front of accounts, open doors, close business, and win it, but doesn't have a lot of involvement in the day-to-day business, right?
Yeah, then even when I'm thinking about, even if they do get in the door right, and then you've got that new ops team handling it at the other company, it's a lot more could go wrong. I feel like to kind of cripple the business as opposed to where it's already running smooth at the previous company.
Yeah, and again, in this market, and when there's so much capacity, like we know, right? Well, if it was the other way around, when the market was flipped and capacity was tight, okay, let's go follow a rep that we know really well, right? But when the market's so soft and there's so much capacity, like why even upset the apple cart?
We see it a little bit differently on the global side or the international side, where we get these inquiries. We're looking for a salesperson with a book of business, and we go, who isn't? So why would they come and work for you? Why would they come and bring that book of business to you? And then we talk to them about sometimes the issues with these, let's say a very, very successful salesperson who is working in global freight forwarding, and let's say he's making, we'll pick an easy number, we're making a base of $100,000 a year, right? That person is probably not on the radar at the company they work for, so not being micromanaged, being trusted a whole lot more to just get on with it. You know, they've proven themselves over a period of time, over a number of years, and now they don't have a target on their back, and they're not being closely monitored. Salespeople like that, but salespeople don't want to be micromanaged and don't want to be closely monitored. For that salesperson to go somewhere else, let's say that salesperson wants a 10% bump, right? So now we're talking about $110,000, and we're talking about employers' contributions, which would bring it up with car allowance, all the rest of it. So you're costing that company $150,000. So that salesperson who's making $100,000 at company A, to go to company B, he's going to want 110, and it's going to cost company B $150,000. And they want a return on that investment. And if we are incredibly generous, and say that freight forwarders make 10% margins, which they don't, it's much less. Although Ryan Peterson of Flexport seems to think it's somewhere between 20 and 30%, but maybe that's why in 10 years the guy's never made a profit. But anyway, we'll talk about that dude later. But so
here we go.
So now,
it only took us a minute 37 to get there.
We knew it was coming. We knew it was coming.
Okay, so now that salesperson has got to go out and get $1.5 million worth of business gross. And I'm being generous, saying the margin's 10%, because it's not. So they've got to go out and get $1.5 million worth of business. And you ask that salesperson, can you do it? And they go, it's going to take a while. Yeah, it's going to take a damn long while just for them to be a break-even proposition. So buying that book of business on the international side, it's often a risky venture, a very, very risky venture. So, it's not something we promote. We don't go to companies and say, hey, are you looking for salespeople with a book of business? We take a bit of a different approach. We also talk to them about doing something for the industry and hiring fresh people. There's not a single person in freight forwarding or truck brokerage on the planet, nor has there ever been anyone who had experience prior to having experience. So everybody started somewhere, right? The four of us all started.
Four people on this call, right? We weren't born to know how to sell freight, but all of us at different points in our lives learned how to sell freight and how to make money on it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's something
probably wasn't something any of us thought we were going to do when we were dreaming of our dream jobs growing up.
I didn't know it was me when I went to go interview. I didn't know that we were selling trucks. I thought it was finance. So,
yeah.
Here we are.
So, what we've done is we've actually partnered up with some of our, on the international side, we've partnered up with some of our client companies on the international side. We've said, let us find you a bright youngster, maybe somebody who's worked a couple of years on the brokerage side, who at least knows some of the terminology, but who was recruited out of college into a sales job, which turned out to be a telesales job, where they're parked in front of two monitors and they're smiling and dialing, having to meet dial quotas all day long and never meeting a prospect, never been in front of a prospect. And so, some of those brokerage youngsters, good degrees, good, smart young people, the opportunity to come and work on the international side and get out in front of prospects, be in front of prospects, as opposed to smiling and dialing all day, very, very appealing. But the other thing we do is that we would also participate through the basic sales training, the basic freight forwarding sales training, as part of the placement fee. So that's another thing that makes us different from other recruiters, is that we partner with our client companies to help get those kind of rookies trained up into salespeople. So we and they are trying to bring in some new blood into this business. So desperate shortage of very good hunter salespeople.
Is it easier on that side of things then, because there's less less requirements and there's obviously a shortage, would you say it's easier to recruit on the forwarding side than it is on the domestic side with the current state of affairs? Is that an accurate statement, or is it more difficult because less people want to get into it?
BP, you frozen? You frozen or no?
Everybody.
No. I think it's your connection. I shot you a chat. Anyways, Matt, can you throw that one more time? I don't know if BP heard that.
Yeah, no, I was saying, do you think it's easier to recruit on the forwarding side or on the domestic side? I know you said there's kind of a shortage of people wanting to get on the international side. Does that make it easier since there's less requirements like a book of business, or is it harder because there's less interest? I was just kind of curious if it's easier right now on the forwarding side or the domestic side, finding talent.
I mean, I'll start this and I'll follow up.
Difficult on both.
Go ahead, BP.
So, sorry, Ryan, you can take it over, but incredibly difficult on both.
Yeah, I will say, if we're playing the numbers game, right? Like at 18,000 odd brokers, 1,000 freight forwarders. If you're playing the numbers game, and of that 18,000, I do believe that number will drastically decrease over the next couple of years, either from exits, acquisitions, roll-ups, you name it. But when you look at some of the on the broker side here in the U.S., like there are more opportunities. It's a tough market, but the companies that are well positioned will grow, right? And then they will see the weaknesses of other companies as opportunities where it's, hey, like, you know what, we're going to make the investment in the people now. And if we're not looking at buying a book of business, and we've got, I know 3 or 4 top 25 brokerages in the U.S. that are changing their mindset, right? Like, hey, we want to hire people that have a book of business, but we're not hiring them and paying them X salary on, plus their commission because of their book of business. But we're looking at this 6, 7, 8, 9 year seller as somebody who, if they've done well in regular times, good times, tough times, they'll be a value to our company, right? We're not going to expect them to, you need business in 30 days, 60 days, whatever. But if they're willing to come in and bet on themselves, ask for a reasonable salary, none of these salary expectations, it really got out of hand. And honestly, as a recruiter, when you're getting paid a percentage during COVID, but some of the numbers, like everybody thought I want a remote job, $150,000 base, work from home. I'll go sell the world for you, right? And a lot of these people now are still like, I want remote, I want a base of $110. It's like, Jimmy, if you look at your numbers, you're probably worth a base of 70. But if you go to a company that has a great comp plan, show them you're worth more, right? But and then you'll hear these people like, I hear from my recruiters and we'll laugh. Somebody wants to make $125 all in, but they want to switch to a new company, but they want a base of 110. So it's like you want a tenth of your comp to be on variable, but you're a seller. You're telling me you're a dog, you're a hunter, but you only want to make 10% of your total compensation by hunting, right?
Yeah, it doesn't add up.
Yeah, no. That's why I always feel a little better on the agent side with people that have transferable books of business, because if it doesn't transfer, they're not getting paid anything. So it doesn't make sense. How often does that happen where you have, because we haven't talked about this yet. I mean, I don't know what your guarantee period is. You've told me, but if it's 60 or 90, but how often does that come where, you have to vet that pretty carefully? Like, some guys saying, things that aren't accurate in terms, and then you find out, 3 weeks into the role, well, this guy kind of, lied basically.
Sure. I mean, I think we might be going through a situation of that right now. Somebody promised to have this book of business, and, without saying names, this candidate basically can't even really function on their computers, but interviewed well, can't do screen shares, can't hop on trainings. It's but then the tell-all was, day 3, it's like, okay, the customer list you had that was going to follow, let's start making calls together, whatever. And, 4 days later, no list is produced. So we've already talked to the client, said, hey, we see the writing on the wall. We've talked to a good client of us. We're like, hey, maybe we just cut bait, right? Save this person from just treading water, basically about to drown. Say, hey, wasn't the right fit. Interview, screened with Logi, went through 3 interviews at that company. Everything sounded good. Somebody who'd been in the game for a while, it's just not a good fit. But we're like, hey, we've already got other willing candidates that want to come in. So let's just squash it, right? Yeah. But what we'll do is everything is a partnership, and they're with a screening at Logitalent, 1 or 2, 3 screenings. plus the client screening is like, if you fool everyone, you fool the whole crew, right? And again, sellers, if you can't sell yourself to get the fucking job, how do you think you can go sell any product or service in the world? Right. But you really need to know the vetting has to be intense. Yeah, no, it's blazed through the interviews and everyone loved him. I unfortunately wasn't on the call, and but on the calls, but knowing from the client and all their interviews in our team, it was like he probably would have sold me too. But point being is that in a market like this, I think you need to level set the expectations, and we've done a really good job the last 7-8 months of talking to new and old clients about what the worries when you buy somebody for their book of business or thought potential whatever book of business versus buying somebody who has a really kick-ass sales process, who has a great personality, who's engaging, who like, hey, put this person in front of buying opportunities or selling opportunities, and they're going to engage potential clients, right? Yeah. And the same for you, Will, right? You need sellers that, okay, all your competition, they move freight, right? You need to find sellers or have your sellers position Black Box in a position where they can show a client they're going to bring a service or value or a reason to use you guys, right? To trust you with their business.
Yeah, what's worked well for us is kind of, again, kind of back to where we talked about, nobody had experience before they had experience, right? So essentially everybody we hire is super green, right? And we usually start them off in a cradle to grave role, but through that we're split. So we have a split model, and we have cradle to graves, and we have sales reps. So within the first 3 to 6 months, we can look at somebody and say, okay, you're good at maybe A, B, and C, but the rest of it's a wash, right? Maybe you just need to exclusively sell. Maybe you hate and are awful at selling, so we're going to move you to a dispatch role or carrier sales. So we have that going for us in the sense that we can bring in an individual, and it's very, very, very rare that there's somebody that, as long as they're willing and showing up and want to learn, that we can't use them for something, right? So that makes it easy on us, because it's very rare that we bring somebody in. It's like, man, we have to cut bait like they're just useless for anything. Like there's something we can use pretty much anybody for, as long as, again, they're willing and have some level of competence.
Yeah. And that's where it gets to, right person, wrong seat, right? Hey, this person has value for Black Box, but in the moment, they're not in the right seat. But if the effort's there, the willingness to learn, and the ability to be a team player, to want to be part of something, you're like, hey, we can find a home for you. Work with us. We'll work with you.
Yeah, it took us a little while when we started out to kind of discover that, right? I've got this guy in a hunter role. He's a gatherer, farmer, move him. And over the last, we've been in business 4 years and some change. Over the last 2 years, that's something we've really focused on is like watching people and taking note of what they're good at. And we found some people that were, just dead weight, red. Like we probably need to fire them. We moved them to other roles. They're killing it now in a different role. So it's been cool.
Yeah, no, and that's great. It's always better to repurpose somebody instead of having to cut bait, right? Hey, they're already here. They're willing to learn. We can teach them something. And you know what? That first role wasn't the right role for them. Or maybe the second one, but the effort, they show up every day, they work hard, they listen, they put forward the effort, and now look, and then, you look at somebody 2 years down the road and you can say, hey, they're really excelling in this role they're in now because they were willing to let us give them, let us show them what path might have made the most sense based on their skill sets, abilities, and work effort.
Yeah, if they're willing to work with us, we'll work with them, right? But on the other hand, if they're not, we will cut ties. The willingness is really, really a big thing for us, especially, again, when we're talking about green people and kind of molding them.
Yeah, I love that.
What about the candidate side? We haven't really talked much about the candidate side. I'm sure we'll get to Flexport at some point since Bill brought them up, but I wanted to touch on the candidate side too. What are kind of mistakes you're seeing? I saw a survey yesterday. It said 19% of people were bringing their parents to interviews. 21%. Yeah.
Where is this survey from?
Yeah, that's great. If somebody brought their parents to interview at Black Box, yeah, we would do the interview, but we wouldn't hire them.
That's what I'm saying. 21% are like turning their cameras off, like during interviews. I'll just send you, as someone who's got a pretty massive following on LinkedIn posted the results of this survey yesterday, and it got me thinking. What are you guys seeing on the candidate side, or some of with the new generation, or some of expectations? I found some of the things on this survey kind of hard to believe. So just kind of curious.
I'll touch on a couple things on the candidate side. And to me, it's a really simple one, because every interview I've ever had, or any meeting, business opportunity, like the logical thing is always follow up with a thank you email, right? Like, hey, hey, Will, thanks for talking to me about the opportunity with Black Box. I'd love to learn about learn more about the roles that you see me as a good fit for. Do you have any reservations with bringing me into your sales team or whatever I'm trying to accomplish, right? But I find that the younger generation, like my recruiters in our team, we need to tell them to send a thank you, right? And I find a lot of times if it comes down to two people and almost everything is they're neck and neck, right? My belief is the person with a well thought out but clear and concise thank you in a relatively short time frame from the interview, nice follow up will probably get the job almost every time over the person who doesn't send one at all.
It's very rare that we get those, and if we ever do get one of those, if we're on the fence, it's now a yes, right? Because again, it is so rare. So when somebody actually does do it, it really sticks out. And then immediately, again, if we had any reservations, we're all of a sudden it's like, you know what, I like this guy. Let's hire him.
Sure, and if you make it clever, add a little bit of humor in there, it shows you what type of follow up that person is likely going to have as a seller, right? Yeah. Versus just they get the call with the decision maker, and when people are taking time to listen to you, to hear you out, whatever, like thank them for their time. Like time is such a valuable asset. Like time isn't free, right? So like if someone takes 30 minutes out of their day as a carrier sales manager to interview somebody, whether you're going to get the job or not, thank them for it, because that thank you might be the reason you end up getting the fucking job.
Yeah, that's a great point.
When we're screening, that's all part of us screening a candidate. It's also part of ensuring that the candidate is ready for the interview, and we're not going to give them all the answers, because then the client company would be hiring us as opposed to the candidate. So we'll ask them what homework have they done, what prep work have they done, what kind of questions are they going to be asking the hiring company or the interviewer, what kind of follow-up do they have planned, so we're going through all that. What we often tell our client companies is, we're not going to overwhelm you with resumes. We're not going to send you a ton of resumes. You have a vacancy in Chicago for this whatever role it is, right? We're not going to send you 15 candidates. We might send you 2. And if you want more, then we'll have to send you the ones that we didn't think were good enough, right? Because we will weed those candidates out, because there's no value using a recruiter if they're just going to be resume brokers or LinkedIn bottom feeders and just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping that it sticks. We don't work that way. We won't waste people's time with sending bad candidates, and we will really screen the candidate, and we'll go through a pre-interview briefing to find out how they're prepared. One of the questions that I often ask candidates is, that I'm having a screening call with, how did you prepare for this screening call with me? Tell me how you prepared for this screening call with me. And they go,
you didn't.
I sent you a connection request on LinkedIn. Okay, yeah, I got it. I connected. What do you know about me? You're a recruiter? Yeah.
You got no hair. You got no hair.
I got no hair. And I so we have to know that they're prepared, right? We have to know that they're prepared, but we can't do all the work for them. And to Ryan's point, that thank you note, there are some things that just never go out of style, right? There are some things that just will never ever go out of style. And I've never known a candidate didn't get a job because he or she sent a thank you note.
Yeah, there's never been a disqualifier ever.
Right.
Maybe in the history of the world.
Yeah.
It's a great topic. Well, I guess to end, as I'm sure a lot of our audience wants to know,
here it comes.
On the forwarding side, and since Bill brought it up, earlier at I think the 36-minute mark, you kind of give us kind of your thoughts, and this kind of goes like the digital freight, and losing money aspect. I mean, you've mentioned, I don't know how this all started, but anyone who follows you on LinkedIn's probably seen some of your comments on Flexport and some of their operations. I mean, kind of how did that all come about?
So I mentioned I've been in the business 54 years. This industry has been incredibly good to me. Look, I'm 4,000 miles away from home. I left school at 16 years old. I have no formal education beyond that. The industry has been incredibly, incredibly good to me and to a whole lot of people that I care about. love, like, respect, whatever, right? And
Well,
so
I mean,
I have
an example today, golfing with a client of yours who you brought into the industry, right? After he retired playing professional soccer, he pulled off away from the golf club in his brand new 911. Never knew anything about moving a pallet of freight before him and my dad were having a beer years ago and talked about it.
Well,
runs a profitable business and didn't come into the business saying everybody in the business is a moron. So
and he came in with no investor, his own money, and just drew no investors, no money, and said, "Hey, I'm going to be." I started selling freight for somebody else, learned how to do it on my own, started my own thing, and he's made it to where he's got a great life because he didn't rely on everybody else's money and digital this and digital that, and he's old school, flies around the world for meetings. But again, it can change lives if you do it the right way.
Yeah. So, having said that, this business has been incredibly good to me. I have a lot of friends in it, a lot of people in it that I love and care about and respect. A lot of companies that I respect the heck out of. So I have absolutely nothing against Flexport, nothing whatsoever. Ryan Peterson, the CEO and founder of Flexport, came on the scene 10 years ago and basically would have everybody believe that freight forwarders were using an abacus and a bean counter, and they had no technology. Look, before Flexport was even a concept in anybody's mind, C.H. Robinson had invested over $1 billion with a B, $1 billion with a B in technology before Flexport ever came into being. So had Kuehne+Nagel, so had Expeditors, so had DHL, so had DB Schenker's. Most of them had, right? But it wasn't their leading punch. It was a logical step in the process that automation will come in, technology will come in, and companies will embrace technology. We used to use typewriters, and then we moved to using Word documents, right? And so on and so forth. So everybody had technology. He would have everybody believe that nobody had technology, and the only company that had technology was Flexport, right? And he managed to sell it. He sold it to SoftBank in Japan. SoftBank have lost a lot of money with other companies, by the way, and he managed to raise $1 billion.
Shout out WeWork. Shout out WeWork.
Yeah, WeWork with SoftBank, right? So they've now raised $2.65 billion, in funding, right? But in 10 years, they've never made a profit. So until Flexport start teleporting freight, they're still going to move freight the same way everybody else does. It's going to go on an airplane. It's going to go on a boat. It's going to go on a train. It's going to go on a truck. There's a fixed and finite number of ways you can move freight. They're doing the same with it as everybody else, with the same airlines, with the same carriers, with the same rail, with everything else. But their big thing is the technology, right? Everybody's got technology. Every freight forwarder, of the 1,000 freight forwarders, every one of them is using technology. They just never made it their leading punch. So, shame on some of them, shame on some of the forwarders for not bragging about their technology. But frankly, it was the next logical step. It was, if you didn't have technology, you would probably go out of business, right? So, that's my issue. And I'm going to say it, it's the lies that he tells, right? If you want to be that public as he does, that guy's a moth to a flame when there's a camera around. If you want to be that person, then know what you're talking about. Don't talk about the freight forwarders have 20 to 30% margins. They don't. Flexport certainly don't, because if they did, they would have made a profit in the last 10 years, whereas they haven't made a profit in the last 10 years, right? So if you're going to say all this, if when the great misfortune of the vessel hitting the bridge in Baltimore, if then you go out and say that now they're going to declare general average, no, you clearly don't know anything about that, Ryan. So you probably shouldn't have said anything, because if you knew anything about it, you wouldn't have had it to when you put it up on Twitter or X or whatever it was, under your name Typefast. That's anybody who wanted to follow him on Twitter or X. You go and buy Typefast. I think he thinks slow, types fast. But anyway, no. So then he has to walk it back. But now, he's already misinformed however many followers he has. Look, stop misinforming people. And this came up on LinkedIn the other day or today or yesterday, whatever, right? About, would I interview Ryan Peterson? I would love to interview Ryan Peterson. It would be a pay-per-view event, the likes of which we've never seen. I would do it in a heartbeat. I'd do it for free. He would never take that on. Because
that would be,
I would ask him the question.
I think Matt Wilson,
nobody ever asked
podcast.
Love to. Yeah, we'll try to make it happen. See if we get him on board.
I don't know if he's going to agree with that.
After hearing Bill talk about it, I wouldn't want to do it with Bill. He's torn up.
But you know what? Look, it's a wonderful industry. It's a great industry. It's full of wonderful people, great people, super, super smart people. He just doesn't happen to be one of them. So, when he is, he'll get my respect. When he makes a profit, I'll give him some kudos and some respect. But 10 years in, you haven't made a profit, and you've burned a lot of the 2.65 billion that was given to you. Come on. He's the male Elizabeth Holmes. End of.
Well,
I'm done.
No, it was interesting, but I think a lot of people aren't as knowledgeable on the forwarding side. So I mean, there's definitely some things there that I had no idea about. It's interesting. It sounds like we've seen some digital, on the brokerage side, some digital stuff not work. So it'd be interesting to see how it works out in the forwarding world. Sounds like not too well so far.
At the end of the day, international, domestic, you got to get freight from point A to point B within a set time frame in one piece, not stolen, right? At a rate that makes sense for the client, and then repeat it, right? Technology doesn't move the actual freight.
No. Respect the industry. Respect the people that have gone before you. Every company that he's ever attacked. The thing that they don't have in common is they all make money, right? Every one of those forwarders that he's said negative things about make money every year. Good times, bad times, all the time. So
good point.
We'll do a whole Flexport issue one day. A whole Flexport
edition,
a whole Flexport podcast
episode.
Yeah,
Not today.
Yeah.
It's been, it's been a great chat. You guys have asked great questions. I really appreciate you, inviting us and allowing us to be part of the podcast. I love anybody that's putting themselves out there and doing something for this industry. Nobody knew about this industry until COVID, right? Nobody knew, right? And then COVID hit. It's like all of a sudden you can't get your goods anymore. I wonder why. Supply chain. Let's get on the evening news. Let's show a container. People didn't know what any of this stuff was. So those of you, do podcasts, massive respect. I'm sure we could all get a whole lot better at doing these things than we currently are. But you're stepping up and stepping out, and you're doing a great service to the industry by giving other people in the industry a voice. And my voice is my opinion, right? It's Bill Paul's opinion on something, except for the profitability part. That's not my opinion. That's a fact. They haven't made any money. The rest of it's Bill Paul's opinion. But love the platforms, love the fact that you guys step out and do these things, and want to wish you. I don't know what episode 8 it says. I hope we're talking on episode 80, episode 800. And I hope you guys are really, really blowing it up, with HD ships and Black Box, and keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate you.
Thanks for coming on, guys. We appreciate you guys taking the time to join us. We know you guys are busy, and keep crushing it. And we'll have to have you guys on again, like you said, maybe next year at episode 80.
Absolutely, I love it. It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
It's a date.
Episode 80. Hey, Matt, unless I'm on a plane, we'll have to be on 81.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thanks again, guys.
Well,
Thanks, guys.
Matt,
Take care.
thanks very much, man. Cheers.
Sure.
Bye.
See
See you guys. Thanks. Bye.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. I'd like to hear Bill talk a little bit more about Flexport.
I was cracking up a little. It's what do you say? Types fast, but it's really slow fast.
Or types fast, but thinks slow. I think
Or something. I forget.
that's good sound bites in there from him.
Yeah. When we put it out, we'll have to tell people that they'll have to watch all the way through. Some people cut off the podcast at the very end, but there's definitely some memorable moments in the last 10 minutes.
We'll get I'll message Renz to clip maybe a soundbite from Bill that he can post on the page, which should be good. Yeah, episode 80. I guess we'll have them back on, and hopefully a guest from Flexport. That'd be a good one.
Yeah, no, it was fun. We got to learn a lot about kind of what's going on in the recruiting world. It's always fun. Ryan's I've known Ryan for a little while now. He's a great guy, and got to interact with Bill too. And Bill's also a good guy. It was fun, man. Went by fast. We'll be back. We'll be back on Friday, right?
Yeah, we'll be back on Friday. Keep an eye out on the pages. We'll make an announcement. But Friday afternoon, we should have another episode this week, episode 9.
Yeah, episode 9. Well, I'll see you on Friday. And thanks again to our sponsors, Sales-CRM, best CRM out there, freight specific. Josh Lyles, hit him up on LinkedIn. Trio, you're doing our back end, our marketing. They do nearshoring, offshoring, obviously Black Box and HE.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody that tuned in. We will see you Friday for episode 9.
Sounds good.
All right.